There's a kind of presence that doesn't need loud words or constant reminders. It doesn't beg for attention. It doesn't chase. It simply exists and leaves a lasting impression. When it comes to being on someone's mind, especially a man's, it's not always about what you say. It's about who you are when you say nothing at all. Your energy, your boundaries, your ability to hold space without filling it with anxiety. That's what stays with him long after the conversation ends. This isn't about manipulation or playing hard to get. It's about embodying a kind of quiet confidence that speaks volumes. The truth is, the most unforgettable people are the ones who know their worth, live their life, and allow someone to come closer, not out of need, but out of mutual desire. If you want to stay on his mind without saying a word, it starts with shifting your focus inward. You become magnetic not by reaching for him, but by reaching deeper into yourself. Here's how. When you live a life that excites you, inspires you, and brings you peace, you instantly become more captivating. Not because you're trying to impress anyone, but because you radiate a kind of wholeness that people are drawn to. It's easy to forget this in dating. We're so often told to keep someone's attention through conversation, appearance, or constant availability. But the truth is, what sticks in someone's mind isn't how often you texted or how quickly you replied. It's the way you made them feel, and more importantly, the way you feel about your own life. When you're deeply engaged in your own world, you create a gravitational pull. You show that your happiness isn't dependent on another person's presence. And that's both rare and attractive. Think about it. When was the last time someone really piqued your interest just by being absorbed in what they love? It could be the way they talked about their passion, the light in their eyes when they described their weekend plans, the calm confidence in their voice when they shared their goals. You didn't need them to say they were special. You felt it. That's what living a life you love does. It makes you feel full, which takes the pressure off the other person to complete you. And paradoxically, that's when they start paying even more attention. We often assume that being on someone's mind means being front and center in their day, but the opposite is true. When someone can sense that you're not sitting around waiting for their call, when they see that you're choosing your time wisely and spending it on things that light you up, that's when curiosity kicks in. What is she up to? Why does she seem so content? How is she not chasing this? That curiosity creates space for them to think about you. And it draws them in more powerfully than any well-crafted message could. You become a question in their mind, not a solved puzzle. You become the rare person who didn't need to perform or overextend. You were simply living. And that made you unforgettable. The beauty of this approach is that it's authentic. You don't have to pretend to be busy or interesting. You actually become busy and interesting by design. You fill your calendar with things that bring you alive. You explore new interests, spend time with friends who inspire you, chase goals that feel meaningful. You create a rhythm that isn't about distraction, it's about fulfillment. And when you meet someone, you invite them into that life, not as its center, but as a complement. This doesn't mean you become emotionally unavailable. Quite the opposite. You're present, engaged, and open to connection, but you're not abandoning yourself in the process. You're not checking your phone every 2 minutes or reshuffling your schedule just to be available. You have boundaries, you know your worth, and you protect the peace you've created. That kind of energy leaves a lasting mark. It's what someone remembers in the silence. It's what echoes in their mind after the conversation ends. You don't have to announce how amazing your life is. It shows in the way you speak, in the calm in your eyes, in the way you don't force anything to happen. You're not trying to fit into anyone else's world. You're inviting someone into yours. And not everyone will be ready for that. Some people will walk away because they realize they can't match the emotional depth or independence you've cultivated. But the right person, they'll lean in. They'll want to know more. They'll start thinking about you. Not because you demanded their attention, but because you were already deeply connected to something bigger, your own happiness. That kind of presence lingers. It speaks when you don't. It keeps you on someone's mind, not as a fleeting thought, but as a powerful reminder of what real confidence looks like. Because when you're genuinely excited about your life, you're not just living for yourself, you're showing others what's possible. And that is magnetic in a way words never will be. Mystery isn't about playing games or withholding affection. It's about maintaining a sense of self that isn't entirely accessible to someone right away. It's about not putting every card on the table at once, not because you're afraid of being vulnerable, but because you understand the power of pacing. When we think of being on someone's mind without saying a word, it's not just about being present in their thoughts. It's about being remembered, wondered about, and emotionally impactful in our absence. Mystery plays a huge role in this. It creates intrigue, keeps them curious, and encourages someone to want to know more. In today's world of constant connection, mystery is a lost art. We've become conditioned to think that availability equals value, that the more we share, the more someone will like us. But connection isn't built by overwhelming someone with your life story or feelings on date 2. It's built in layers. Think about your favorite stories or characters. You didn't love them all at once. You became intrigued by their complexity. Their layers were revealed gradually. And that slow burn is what made the emotional investment worth it. That same principle applies to relationships. When you give someone the space to discover who you are, one layer at a time, you stay interesting, you stay on their mind. One of the most powerful ways to create that sense of mystery is through emotional restraint. Not in a cold or withholding way, but in a mature, grounded way that says, you don't get all of me right away. This doesn't mean playing hard to get. It means not over-explaining yourself. It means not rushing to fill every silence. It means letting things breathe. You don't need to constantly tell someone what you're thinking or feeling to make an impression. Often, it's the moments you hold back that speak the loudest. Silence can be more seductive than any line because it invites curiosity. It creates room for the other person to lean in, to wonder, to imagine, and that imagining, that's where you live in their mind. Mystery also comes from maintaining parts of your life that are just yours. Private joys, personal goals, solo adventures. You don't need to broadcast everything you're doing or thinking. In fact, when you hold on to something that brings you joy, something that doesn't revolve around your connection to another person, you exude self-sufficiency. It sends a subtle message. I have a world you haven't fully seen yet. That is profoundly attractive. People want to explore what they don't fully understand. They want to know what makes you tick, where you go when you need peace, what dreams you haven't shared yet. You don't need to manufacture intrigue, you just need to keep something sacred. Another subtle but powerful element of mystery is emotional self-possession. This is the ability to stay rooted in your own emotional world, even in the midst of a connection. When you're not constantly reacting, when you don't let every message or interaction sway your emotional state, you become someone who feels solid. And solid people are unforgettable. They're not looking to be saved. They're not trying to impress. They're just living, breathing, grounded individuals. And that grounded energy, it's magnetic. It lingers after a conversation ends. It whispers, there's more here than I've seen. And that whisper, it keeps you on someone's mind far more than a flood of attention ever could. The truth is, mystery isn't about withholding love. It's about not giving yourself away too easily. It's about letting someone earn access to your deeper layers over time. It's about showing enough of yourself to build connection, but not so much that there's no space left to explore. It's the art of slow revelation. And in a world obsessed with instant gratification, that kind of patience stands out. It creates a feeling that's hard to shake. They may not know everything about you yet, but they feel something, and that feeling is what brings them back again and again, without you having to say a word. Confidence is one of the most magnetic forces in human connection, but it's not the kind of confidence that walks into a room demanding attention or validation. It's the quiet kind. The grounded, internal sense of self that doesn't need to prove anything. That's what leaves an imprint. That's what someone remembers after a date, after a conversation, after a passing encounter. When you walk in that kind of energy, you stay on someone's mind, not because you tried to, but because your presence told a deeper story, a story of someone who doesn't chase, doesn't beg, doesn't shrink, a story of someone who knows exactly who they are. When you embody this kind of confidence, it changes the energy between you and everyone you interact with. Instead of trying to win someone over, you're simply showing up as yourself and letting that be enough. That calm self-assurance makes people lean in. It makes them want to understand what makes you so composed, so rooted. And the best part? This kind of confidence can't be faked. It's built through tiny promises you keep to yourself every day, through choosing your standards and sticking to them, through knowing that walking away from something that doesn't serve you is a strength, not a loss. There's a subtle but powerful shift that happens when you stop trying to be chosen and start choosing. Most people are performing in dating. They're trying to be liked, trying to stand out, trying to say the right thing. But the moment you drop that act and start assessing whether someone actually fits into your life, you stop chasing and start attracting. This doesn't mean you're cold or dismissive. It means you're selective. You're aware of your worth. You know that your time and energy are valuable. And people can feel that. They may not articulate it, but they sense that being around you isn't something to be taken for granted. It's a privilege. Confidence also shows up in how you handle silence and space. Insecure energy tries to fill every pause, explain every move, check for constant reassurance. Confident energy knows that not every moment needs a reaction. Not every message needs an immediate reply. Not every compliment needs to be deflected with self-deprecation. When someone can sit in silence with you and still feel your presence, that's when they start thinking about you long after you've left the room. That's when the connection becomes more than just surface level. It becomes felt. It's not about arrogance. It's not about pretending you're better than anyone. True confidence is humble. It's the ability to know you bring value to the table without shouting about it. You don't need to convince anyone of your worth. Your boundaries do that for you. Your standards do that. The way you carry yourself when someone tries to test your limits or push your buttons, that's the kind of energy that speaks louder than words ever could. And when someone senses that you respect yourself, they either rise to meet you or they fall away. Either way, you win. Confidence also means being able to express your feelings without attaching your identity to the outcome. You can say how you feel without needing the other person to validate it. You can show interest without fear of rejection because you know that your value doesn't fluctuate based on how someone else responds to you. This kind of emotional autonomy is rare and powerful. It creates safety. It shows maturity. It sets a tone that you're not here to play games. You're here to connect. And when you combine that clarity with confidence, you become unforgettable. You don't have to speak louder to be heard. You don't have to try harder to be noticed. When you walk into a room, knowing your value, you leave a silent echo that follows people even after you're gone. They may not know exactly why, they're still thinking about you, but they will, because confidence doesn't scream, it resonates. And that resonance stays, it lingers in the spaces between conversations, in the quiet moments of their day, in the comparison they make when they meet someone else who doesn't quite measure up. And all of it, every single bit of that lingering presence, comes from the calm certainty that you are enough, exactly as you are. Mystery has a unique way of capturing attention and stirring curiosity, not because you're playing games, but because you're not laying every single card on the table too soon. In the world of dating and emotional attraction, there's something undeniably powerful about leaving a little to the imagination, not in a manipulative way, but in a way that reflects self-respect and emotional depth. When you're not an open book to just anyone, people have to earn the privilege of really knowing you. That process of discovery creates intrigue, it creates mental and emotional engagement, and most importantly, it gives space for genuine connection to grow rather than being rushed or forced. A lot of people mistake openness for intimacy. They think that if they tell someone everything about themselves on the first few dates, it will create closeness. But in reality, it often does the opposite. When you overshare too quickly, you remove the natural buildup that allows emotional bonds to form gradually. You deny the other person the joy of unfolding your layers one at a time. Instead of connection, you create overwhelm. And what you want, what actually keeps you on someone's mind, is pacing. Giving them something meaningful, but not everything. letting them feel like each interaction with you reveals a new shade of your character, a new insight into your heart, a new dimension of your world. This doesn't mean being distant or guarded. It means being intentional. Intentional with your energy, your presence, and your personal stories. When you share something about yourself, do it from a place of strength, not desperation. Share because you want to, not because you feel pressure to fill silence or gain approval. When you lead with intentionality, it becomes clear that your inner world is a place of substance, and it's not open to just anyone who walks by. That kind of energy makes people feel both curious and honored to be let in, even just a little. Another layer of mystery is how you carry yourself when you're not around them. People start to wonder what you're doing, who you're spending time with, what lights you up, what you're building. They sense that your life isn't revolving around them, and that realization is deeply attractive, because when you have your own orbit, your own goals, passions, and priorities, you become more than just someone they're dating. You become someone they admire, someone they think about when you're not texting back right away, someone whose attention feels like a gift, not an entitlement. There's also a kind of mystery in how you express interest. You can be warm, kind, and engaged, but you don't have to lay out all your feelings too soon. When you let someone feel your presence without giving away your entire emotional roadmap, you create a sense of anticipation. That anticipation builds desire. It makes the next conversation more exciting, the next interaction more meaningful, and it ensures that any intimacy that develops is earned, not assumed. You stop being the person they can predict, and you become the person they look forward to understanding more deeply. Mystery is also tied to self-control. It's in how you respond when you're triggered. It's in how you don't react impulsively to every text, every delay, every misunderstanding. When someone sees that you're not easily rattled, that you hold space for your own emotions without exploding or begging for validation, they start to see you differently. You're not just emotionally attractive, you're emotionally safe. And when mystery is paired with emotional safety, that's when people really get hooked. Because not only are you interesting, but you're also secure. You're the rare combination of someone they want to know more about and someone they can trust. It's tempting to want to be fully seen and understood right away. But real intimacy, the kind that leaves a lasting impression, isn't born out of full disclosure. It's born out of slow, intentional revelation, of allowing someone to earn the next layer of your truth. And in doing that, you hold your value. You remain grounded in your self-worth, and you keep showing up in a way that naturally keeps you on their mind long after the conversation ends. Confidence speaks long after you leave the room. It's not in what you say to him, it's in how you carry yourself when you're not saying anything at all. The fifth way to be on his mind without saying a word is to radiate unshakable self-assurance. It's not about arrogance or pretending to be something you're not. It's about standing firm in who you are, in what you bring to the table, and in the life you've built. When you embody true confidence, it lingers in the air, in the way you walk, the way you smile, the way you maintain eye contact, and yes, even in your silence. There's a misconception that you need to keep messaging, calling, or updating someone to stay relevant in their mind, but that kind of behavior often creates noise, not presence. Confidence, on the other hand, creates gravity. It pulls attention toward you without you having to reach out or demand it. When you know your worth, you stop chasing validation. And ironically, that's when people start to notice you more. They sense your certainty, they feel your strength, and it makes them curious. What is it about you that makes you so grounded, so composed, so unaffected by their inconsistency? This type of confidence is quiet, but potent. It's the calm that speaks louder than words. It's the kind that doesn't flinch when he doesn't text back right away, that doesn't spiral when plans get delayed. It's the calm that says, I trust myself enough to not overreact, and I trust life enough to let things unfold the way they're meant to. That calm is magnetic because it reflects self-mastery, and self-mastery is rare. When a man encounters a woman who's not living in emotional chaos, who doesn't make his behavior the center of her world, she becomes unforgettable. Not because she tried to be, but because she is. When you radiate confidence, you don't need to be loud to be seen. You don't need to over-explain yourself or convince anyone of your value. You just are. And that kind of presence lingers. It's in the back of his mind when he's wondering why you're not reacting like others have. It's there when he notices how graceful you were when things got uncomfortable. It's in his memory when he recalls how your energy made him feel. Calm, curious. Confidence shifts the dynamic because it subtly communicates, I like you, but I don't need you to complete me. And that's a message that stays with people. One of the most compelling aspects of confidence is that it shows you're living a life of purpose and fulfillment outside of him. You're not sitting by the phone. You're not constructing your happiness around his availability. You're out there doing your thing, pursuing your passions, showing up for your goals, spending time with people who energize you. That makes you deeply attractive. Not just because you're busy, but because you're whole. Your life is full, your heart is full, and you're inviting someone in, not begging them to fill a gap. This also means that when you're with him, you're present, not performing. Confidence lets you enjoy the moment without grasping for certainty about the future. It's in the way you laugh without worrying how it's perceived, in how you sit in silence without rushing to fill it, in how you respond to compliments with grace instead of deflection. All of that sends a message without you needing to spell it out. I'm not here to impress. I'm here to be. And when someone feels that, it creates a different kind of tension, one that draws them in, not because you're trying, but because you've stopped trying too hard. People remember how you made them feel. When you show up in your full presence, grounded and confident, you leave an imprint. You don't need to remind them of your value with texts, posts, or calls. They already felt it in your vibe. They felt it in how you didn't need to prove anything. They felt it in the way you handled yourself, with warmth, but also with boundaries, with openness, but also with standards. That's the kind of energy that lingers long after the conversation is over. That's how you stay on his mind, by becoming the rare presence that doesn't demand attention, yet always commands it. Mystery is powerful, not the kind that's manipulative or vague for the sake of creating drama, but the kind that arises naturally when you're deeply connected to your own life. The sixth way to be on his mind without saying a word is by being a woman who keeps a part of herself sacred. A woman who's open but doesn't put everything on display. A woman who allows herself to be known in layers, slowly, with intention. Not because she's playing games, but because she values herself enough to let someone earn the deeper parts of her. We live in a world of oversharing. Social media has trained us to believe that constant updates are necessary to be seen, to be relevant, to be remembered. But real connection doesn't grow from exposure, it grows from discovery. And when someone feels like they know everything about you right away, there's no space left to be curious. But when you reveal yourself slowly, authentically, it builds intrigue, it invites questions, it keeps you in someone's thoughts because they're still learning you, still wondering, still exploring. When you hold a bit of yourself back, not out of fear, but out of discernment, you create space for anticipation. And anticipation is powerful. It makes someone replay past conversations, look for clues in your body language, wonder what you're thinking when you pause instead of oversharing. That pause becomes an imprint. That curiosity becomes memory. You don't have to say a word, but you've already created a presence that's impossible to ignore. Mystery isn't about being silent. It's about being selective. You can be warm, engaging, and even vulnerable while still keeping certain things sacred. You can be generous with your energy, but private with your inner world. And in that balance, you create magnetism. He doesn't get to read your entire book in one sitting. He has to turn the pages. He has to lean in. That act of leaning in, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, that's what keeps you on his mind. A woman with mystery knows the value of delayed gratification. She understands that not everything needs to be explained right away. She lets silence speak when it's more powerful than words. She doesn't rush to fix the tension or over-explain her emotions. She lets the moment breathe. That kind of restraint is rare, and it's compelling because it suggests emotional intelligence. It suggests depth. It suggests that you're not just seeking attention, you're inviting connection, which is something entirely different. Mystery is also rooted in boundaries. When you don't feel the need to overshare or over-accommodate, You show that you're not auditioning for someone's approval. You're living your life and they're welcome to be part of it, but you're not going to hand over every piece of yourself in hopes that they'll stay. You're not trying to be unforgettable. You're just living fully, and in doing so, becoming unforgettable. This means you don't have to answer every message right away. You don't have to say yes to every plan. You don't have to explain why you're busy or who you're with. You're allowed to have a world that doesn't revolve around him. And that mystery, that independence becomes the gravitational pull. He starts to wonder, what is she doing? Who is she with? What's she thinking? And it's not because you're trying to provoke that thought. It's because you're genuinely invested in a life that's rich, dynamic, and not dependent on his attention. When he senses that you're not waiting around, that your mind is occupied with more than just him, that you have passions, friendships, rituals, and moments that are just for you, it hits differently. He doesn't get to consume all of you at once, and that scarcity creates value. It's not about being unavailable, it's about being multifaceted, and multifaceted people are remembered. Not because they were loud, not because they tried to impress, but because they had something deeper to discover. So while others are trying to be unforgettable through constant contact, you stand out by creating space. While others are trying to fill every silence, you embrace it. While others rush to be known, you let connection build slowly, authentically, with intention. And in that space, in that restraint, you're remembered. You're on his mind, not because you demanded attention, but because you gave him just enough to want more. You made him feel, think, and wonder. And that's the kind of presence that lingers long after the moment is over. When you stop chasing to be remembered and start focusing on truly living, that's when you become unforgettable. Every moment you pour into yourself, into your peace, your purpose, your growth, you radiate something that words could never capture. You no longer need to fight for space in someone's mind because your presence speaks for itself. You don't beg, you don't perform, and you don't over-explain. You just live so fully, so deeply that your absence becomes louder than any words ever could. That's how you stay on his mind, by making peace your power, confidence your language, and self-respect your compass. In a world where people scream to be noticed, you whisper, and somehow that whisper echoes the loudest.